Welcome again. In this video we're continuing on the subject of Hebrew and biblical poetry, and specifically repetitions, which is very interesting and very important in any literature, but especially in poetry, and it's really important in Hebrew poetry. And I want to think about one particular issue in this video, which is different types of word plays. Word plays can be either a play on the same word with different meanings or nuances, or it can be a play on words which are different but from the same semantic field. So what is a semantic field? Well, it's actually a shared sphere of meaning. So we can have words like eat, drink, swallow, chew, and they're all from the same semantic field, which is eating, drinking, and so on. And so the first thing that's important with word plays in Hebrew poetry is to identify the connection. But then the second thing which is really the crunch, is okay, I've identified there's a connection here, but what is it doing? What effect is it having? I want to give an example of the way that word plays can play out, and it can be both linguistic, but also it can be a play on meaning. If you look at Isaiah chapter 26, which starts by saying, "In that day this song will be sung in the land of Judah. We have a strong city. He sets up walls and ramparts for security," talking about the city that will be strong. "Open the gates and ramparts, open the gates, and the righteous nation may enter, the one that remains faithful." So here we have gates and entering. So we're already talking about some kind of pilgrimage, people coming in by walking, and that subject actually is something that we see further on as well. It talks about being God being trustworthy, and in verse 4 it says, "Trust in the Lord forever, for in God the Lord we have an everlasting rock. For he has brought low those who dwelt on high, the unassailable city." And here we have a comparison with this secure city and the city that was thought to be unassailable, but God has brought those who dwell in it low. He lays it low. He lays it low to the ground. He casts it to the dust. So now we have the dust, which is where your feet tread. And then it comes back to, in very clear terms, the subject of feet. But stand in this dust, the foot will trample it. The feet of the afflicted, the steps of the helpless. The way of the righteous is smooth. O upright one, make the path of the righteous level. So here we have a number of different words, and you can, if you look at the Hebrew, you will see that there's several different Hebrew words that are used here to talk about the way and the feet. But it's emphasizing, it's putting our focus here on the feet, that on the one hand they're trampling this proud city that was brought low, and on the other hand they're walking in the right path. And then we have a very interesting continuation of this play on feet, on the way, the path, in verse 8. "Indeed, while following the way of your judgments, O God, O Lord, we have waited for you eagerly. Your name, even your memory, is the desire of our souls." So here, where the way so far has been the way of the righteous, now it's actually the Lord's way. And it's the way of his judgments. So this is an example of the way that words can be used to really emphasize a certain subject and put our focus on something. And it's being done also by a type of repetition, which is using different words and playing on those words. Another good example of this is an example we've already seen in a previous video from Psalm 1, the first verse. How blessed is the man who does not walk in the counsel of the wicked, nor stand in the path of sinners, nor sit in the seat of scoffers. And of course, the words walk, stand, and sit, they're all from the same semantic field. They have, they all belong to the position of the body, either walking or standing or sitting. And when we look at that connection and see that there's a development here we can see that also the message is clearly being emphasized by this play on these words from the same semantic field. So that's another example. So just to encourage you to look out for those things, and as we think about what this actually means here and ask ourselves, well, what is it saying? I mean, we can think about various things. We can think about the powerful, subtle, and ongoing influence of evil. The blessed man is the one who does not walk, stand, or sit. But we can also see in that progression the fact that leaving God's way can be a gradual process. It starts with walking, it then turns to standing, you're not moving anymore, and then it turns to sitting, where you're actually in the company of, and that leads to the third, another emphasis here, which is the importance of what company you hold. The man is blessed who does not hold this company, firstly by walking with them or by standing with them, but lastly by actually sitting with them, which especially in biblical thought is you're sitting with them, you're eating with them, you're part of them. So here's a good example of how words from the same semantic field are being used to emphasize the message. Another example of wordplay, but this time from the point of view of just the same word being used, is in Psalm 74. Psalm 74 verse 19. I'll read it first in the English translation, the New American Standard, which says, "Do not deliver the soul of your turtle dove to the wild beast. Do not forget the life of your afflicted forever." You might be surprised to find out that actually the word here, which is translated wild beast, and the word in the second part of the verse, which is translated the life, is the same word. In Hebrew, chayat, which is very interesting. And here I would again encourage you to look at a literal translation. If you look at, for instance, Young's literal translation says here, "Give not up to a company the soul of thy turtle dove. The company of the poor ones forget not forever." Well, so we have the repetition of the word here, which is translated company, which isn't a great translation, but at least it shows us the repetition. So I would encourage you to work with both a regular translation, because there you'll get the meaning of the word, but also a literal translation, which will show you maybe where there is a repetition, and then work with those together. You can actually also work with a transliteration. There are online transliterations. A transliteration is where the Hebrew words have been transferred into Latin letters, so that you can actually follow and see where there are similar words. So in this particular verse, for instance, if you look at, there's one that you can go to online, which is Q Bible. And you'll find, if you look at this verse in Q Bible, the transliteration, it says, "Al titen lechayat nefesh torecha, chayat aniecha al tishkach lenetzach." So chayat, you can hear it comes again. So here's the really interesting thing. The wordplay creates both unity and tension, because in the first part of the verse, it's a prayer do not deliver the soul of your turtle dove, the one you love, to the wild beast, to the hayat. So don't deliver his soul to the one who can destroy him. But actually, in the second part of the verse, it says, the hayat of your afflicted one, do not forget forever. So actually now the same word is now being used with a different meaning to actually indicate what in the first part of the verse is the soul of your turtle dove, which is really, really interesting. So you have both a continuity because of the word, but also a stark contrast between the source of fear, the wild beast, the hayat, and then that same word being used to describe the very soul of the turtle dove, which just brings a juxtaposition showing the difference and creating a tension while it's at the same time creating this unity between the parts of the verses. So again, I would encourage you to use these different tools that you might have for English speakers, both a regular translation which will translate the meaning of the word, but also a literal translation, and look for the places where you see that there are repetitions, plays on words, and again, the question really then is, what's it doing? What effect is it having here? So I hope that will help you in your own study.